Hello, everybody. Welcome to Swarthy and Swank. I'm your host, Samori Swagger. Today, we are blessed to have these brothers right here. Got them on the line, and we're going to be discussing their brand of clothing, Apostle Clothing, how they came up with the concept, target market, and the various ideas and designs that they come up with. I had to reach out to them because they're breaking into the market. They've been there and they're growing. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to get the interview with them from the ground up, and get to pick their brains and just see everything that keeps them running and where the brand may be going in the future. So with that said, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna let these brothers introduce themselves. Either one of y'all jump in the ring.
All right, I'll go ahead and start it off. My name is Jason. Uh, one of the original, I guess you could say, founders, or one of the original designers with Apostle. I'm gonna go ahead and just introduce everybody, and then let everybody give a spiel on where they are currently right now. For me, myself, I'm an educator, vice principal of STEM at a charter school in Washington, D.C., working with our youth and at-risk children on a day-to-day basis. This is my 16th year in, and I'm super excited about what it is that I do in that space, but also the connection that or how I've connected what apostle is and what apostle means in that space as well, and just trying to provide an example for the kids that I have care of throughout the course of the day. To my right on the screen, I'm not sure if it's the same order, but we have one of my fraternity brothers, Mark Garner. We also have my cousin down at the bottom, uh, Kenyon, also better known as Pete, and then one of our extended family members. And I say extended in the sense of how he came in, but he's definitely still yet one of our brothers, Keith, down at the bottom, who is a pivotal aspect and part of Apostle when it comes to our design. So I'm gonna go ahead just after introducing you guys and let y'all have the floor now too.
I can go. I'm Mark Garner. By day, I'm a technology recruiter. I've got about 15 years experience, um, both internal and as a headhunter, working for an agency, recruiting highly qualified technology talent for companies in the DC metro area. Um, got involved with Apostle in the last few years. I was around in the very beginning stages of Apostle, but more as a bystander, more as a friend and fan of the brand and what they were doing. And I think we'll talk about it more as we discuss throughout the night. But I certainly thought that the brand was something that you know has a bigger space now than where it did in initial stages, 10, 15 years ago. And a lot of that is due to the rise of social media and things that there just weren't available to us back then when Pete and Jason were really kicking things off in the very, very beginning. But I'm happy to be a part of it. I think it's a great brand, and I think Keith has been somebody who's just been phenomenal with uh, coming up with some of the designs that we do have to offer, and I'm excited about where we can take this thing.
Okay, I'll go next. My name is Kenyon. Everybody knows me as Pete. Um, Mark also forgot he was one of our first models, so I'll chime in and add that part as well. Uh, um, let's see. I currently do procurement contracts in the private industry. Prior to that, I did architecture and design for the government. Um, the design aspect is pretty much what I brought originally to. I'm one of the definitely founding members of Apostle. Um, and I want to say that's primarily that was my role originally, was designer, and Currently, yeah, we are still in the designing, grinding aspect. I feel as though, like Mark said, due to advancements in technology, accessibility to different manufacturers, um, as well as, just social climate, we've been able to kind of jump back into this realm because it was very much needed. And then I'm going to pass it over to my greatest and latest designer, Keith Watley.
Don't hype it up too much. Thanks for the intro. Yes, my name is Keith. I am currently I work in procurement for food and non-food service for a global company that is a subsidiary of a larger company. Without giving names, I've been in that position for about 5 years. I've been with the company for about 15 years. So I've been doing that. My introduction to Apostle is not in the same fashion. I actually married into Apostle, if that makes any sense.
Literally.
My wife is Pete's younger sister. So I kind of always had that aspiration. I had my own clothing line that I was kind of doing solo dolo, which that wasn't the best. Didn't didn't pan out the way that I had expected, but I always saw the group, saw all these fellas and what they were doing and what they were about, and was always, chiming to Pete like, hey, let me do this. I want to do this. Let's do this. And he was like, yeah, okay, all right. I don't think I was really taken seriously, but then once I started to put pen to pad and they saw what I could do, Jason saw what I could do and was like, let's talk. So that's pretty much brief about me.
Nice. Boy, man, y'all some heavy hitters in your day jobs too, man. Very prolific. Yeah. All right. Brand names. I stand behind it. No more the chairman of General Mills, Apostle. That's the name. Where did that name come from, and when did this arise?
I can start this. We can get a little bit of everybody's intake. Okay, so Apostle, the name is an acronym. It stands for Aspiring People Overcoming Situations of Life, which is everybody. It's global. Everyone out here is aspiring to achieve some type of success in their life, and that's how the original of the name, the origin of the name, kind of came to fruition. A lot of the design in the creative process goes behind, it follows that mantra and that mindset. So it's very much grounded in the aspiring people overcoming situations of life. It's for the everyday person out here. Our first line per se was like the everybody is a star line, and that was just to give light and shed light, I should say, on giving inspiration to individuals, letting them know that you are a star, you are appreciated. When you're out here, put your best foot forward, put your best effort forward. It was to inspire. So when you put on these clothes and this brand, I wanted you to feel this way when you stepped outside. Following that, we kind of evolved that as we got older to like the AOE line, which was aspire, overcome, and evolve, because that's what we were doing as young men growing into adults, becoming parents, becoming professionals. So that all kind of flowed into together, and then eventually we're bringing out some new stuff in the future, but that as well will have that same type of mindset to just inspire the wearer, the consumer, with that idea, that mantra of you are a star, you are evolving, you are, you are a person, in a situation of life, like you're aspiring within this situation, whatever you're in. So that's the broad aspect of what apostle is, what it stands for, how we kind of came to the name of apostle.
And I'll build on that just to say that, to a lot of the points that Pete made, just in regards to what the acronym of apostle stands for, like what's the meaning behind it, how that played out for me, and why it's what it means. What it does to me is that I took that concept of AOE, aspire, overcome, and evolve. Like those are the three pillars of my classroom for years. Like I have kids that I taught in 2008 that could still recite that understand what that stands for and what that means. And, we was even fortunate enough when we did a recent drop 2 summers ago to have some of the kids that I taught at that time model the clothes for us in one of our marketing shoots. So, that's how it's stuck with me. Like I've carried that into the classroom every year since we really decided that was one of the staples that we built the brand on. It has the meaning of aspiring people overcoming situations of life. And in order to do that, you have to aspire to be your best, overcome the obstacles that you're presented with, and evolve into a better you from learning from your mistakes and learning from your lessons. And again, like I said, that's how I drove my classroom, and it resonated with me. And, Mark would hear that, he would see that, and he would always talk about one of the original designs of AOE. It was a real fresh, very simple design that Pete came up with, where the A and the E were basically the same lettering, but they were reversed to fit the letter. So, the A was in one orientation and the E was oriented different, but it was the same letter. In the middle was the O. And we had the aspire, overcome, and evolve written in the middle. And just some basic colors, right? Just some basic colors that popped. I think really the one that Mark had at that time was like in the FAMU colors. So a lot of the things we did were rooted in our own experiences at the time. And like Pete said, as we all grew in our own space and became adults, that still kind of resonated and stuck with us. We could see different aspects and facets of our lives those 3 words stood out and represented something that was going on, from either going from, again, young men owning nothing to owning our own, and purchasing homes and earning degrees, and, climbing the ladder in our spaces and careers. Like it really just continued to resonate. And the message of promoting everybody as a star, that's why you see the star at the center of the apostle. Like this right here, let me just step back for a minute, because Keith knows how I feel about this, right? So the apostle arch was this logo right here. We call it the apostle arch. And Keith just came with it like, this is what I did. I was just playing around. And we looked at it for a minute when he presented it to us, and it was real simple. It was clean. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me, from a fashion standpoint, it reminded me of like classic brands that I used to wear growing up. And I was like, this logo could stand the test of time. Like this is the logo I could see on a shirt various different ways, however we want to put it on there over time. And the arch was dope because that tied into the aspiring aspect, like that particular thread through the definition of the name. And then with the stars, the centerpiece, like that's the focus. I tell them all the time, anytime I go anywhere, I don't care what space I'm in. When I have on Apostle, I don't care who has on what name brand around me. I always feel like the flyest dude in the room. Like, and that, like Pete said, that's the feeling I want everybody to have when you put it on. It could be the standout, the star of the show of what I'm wearing. It could be a piece that I might highlight with some other garments. But whatever it is that I have on, when it's Apostle, you really can't tell me nothing. Like I walk different. My swag is different when I put this on. And that's where the idea everybody is a star. because in your own right you are, like in your own space you shine, and you have to acknowledge that. And it's about self-confidence, and that's what we wanted to build up in people. Like as young Black men, we wanted people to recognize what makes them special, because we don't want you to dim your light when you walk into a room. Like if you too bright for everybody, then just hand out shades. That's how it should be. You know, like Hov said, when I walk into the room, I walk in as who I am, and I'm not going to change that for anybody. And that's what Apostle, you know, really started to. That's how it started to stick to me. So, but you know, again, that's how it all tied in, and along the lines of us just being aware as intelligent men of certain situations that's been going on, like especially when we relaunched, it was a lot going on in the world, and we felt like we wanted to address that from an artistic standpoint, you know, and from that, like a lot of things that we build and lean into with Apostle grew from that. And we'll talk about that, you know, as we go on in the conversation. So
I did want to touch on some points though. So when we first started this, or when Apostle first started, you know, I'm from Washington, D.C. Jason's from New York. Marcus from Ohio. Keith is from everywhere, but you know, North Carolina, Pittsburgh area, right?
West Coast,
So
like all of
yeah.
that.
So you know, growing up in Washington, D.C., 80s, 90s, the fashion of the era was madness, you know, squares, you know, We Are One, you know, everything you can possibly see on 7th Street around Howard University, right? And you know, going to Hampton University, that was like at Hampton, you could show out like where you were from by how you were dressed, right? You know, slouch socks, Timberland boots, New Balance. You know, you from DC. You know what I mean? And you know, countless times I spent, you know, asking big sisters and whoever who was headed up to DC, let me catch a ride so I could go back home and grab some fresh gear, right? And you know, a college student, you don't have the financial, you know, like you did when you were back home with mom and dad, and you like, Mom, I'm going out with my friends. Let me grab a couple dollars so I can go grab a fresh shirt or something. So you know, after a while, that became very costly. And being an architecture student at Hampton University, I also had to do a lot of arts and crafts type projects, right? You know, you have to create models. You have to, you know, I spent a lot of time in the arts and crafts store. And in doing so, you know, you peruse the aisles, you're looking for these, you know, gypsum boards and, you know, different types of wood, balsa wood, so you can figure out how to create these projects. And I stumbled upon this aisle that had like these iron-on letters. And I'm looking at these letters and I'm like, this is just like the stuff that I'm buying back home, right? And so I'm like, okay, let me try some stuff, you know. And this is even before I even had a name brand, but there were some puff paints, there were some iron-on letters. I tried a couple of quick designs, and you know, made it very Washington D.C. urbanish, right? And like Jason said, the reaction that you get when you put on these garments, it's like, especially when you're wearing something that you created yourself, you feel a certain way, right? And so when people are like, who is that brand? I haven't seen them back home, you know what I mean? But it looks like a DC based clothing line, and they're like, yo, who is this designer? I gotta get this. I gotta get this. And that eventually evolved, you know, into, you know, heat press and puff paints to my brother went to Morehouse, and down there his good friend, I never forget Hill. Hill and my brother came to visit one time from Morehouse, and Hill had on one of his designs. His thing was called like U-turns. And I'm like, Hill, who produced that for you? Like, who is U-turns? He was like, oh, this is me. You know, this is how I do this. And so this is two designers coming together, you know, to share ideas. You know what I mean? At a time when we're just young kids out here trying to experiment with different concepts.
Mm-hmm.
He showed me how to use this Wonder Under. He showed me how to create stencils, using paper and what is it you put on? Like a clear wrap. And I had X-Acto blades for life because I was an architecture student.
True.
And I started to create different garments that looked almost embroidered or stitched without having to pick up a needle and thread.